Hello and welcome to my video, MGTOW and safe spaces. Firstly, I'm going to warn you that this video is probably going to end up very long. This is because I have a lot to say on the matter. So what I'm going to do is title sections and I'm going to use timestamps. So using the internet, I found two definitions that I'm going to use for safe space. Safe space on the Wikipedia. In education institutions, safe space or safer space and positive space are terms that are originally intended were used to indicate that a teacher, education institution or student body did not tolerate anti-LGBT violence, harassment or hate speech, therein creating a safe place for all LGBT students. The term safe space has been extended to refer to the autonomous space for individuals who feel marginalized to come together, communicate, regard their experience with marginalization, typically on a university campus. Definition number 2. What is a safe space? A safe space is a place where anyone can relax and be fully able to express without fear of being made uncomfortable, unwelcome or unsafe on the account of biological sex, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, cultural background, religious affiliation, age or physical or mental ability, adding a place where the rules guard each person's self-respect and dignity and strongly encourage everyone to respect others. For the purposes of this video, my shorthand definition is just going to be a place where you can express yourself without getting judged. So as my first definition alluded to, safe spaces were created and started on university campuses. Now this typically is what commonly referred to as special snowflakes, and what we mean by these people is people who deny reality. So these are university students who, as we can put it, haven't worked a real day in their lives yet, disagreeing with various things or feeling something and then requiring a safe space. Now of course some of these concerns or fears or requirements for the safe space are completely legitimate. For example, if they'd been a victim of a crime, there's some lingering effects and they sometimes just need to sort of shelter away from the outside, then that's fair enough. Okay, now we'll revisit the real life implications on safe spaces, but let's talk about MGTOW. Are MGTOW special snowflakes who haven't worked in a day in their life, probably privileged and going to university? Whilst it's almost certainly true that perhaps some of them are, the MGTOW's desire for a safe space is a reaction to the real world, not a denial of the real world as such. And I could put it simply as they've probably gone through some shit and they don't want to deal with some more shit and they just need some sort of break, some sort of space, some sort of release. And also, if we're going to categorize everyone in groups, what groups do all the most demanding jobs, the most dangerous jobs, the most difficult jobs? And men as a group have the highest suicide rate. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say men are the #1 victim class within society. I'm stating that it's highly likely that men as a group have the most real world problems. And thus the need for a safe space doesn't seem very unreasonable. For me, I sort of thought about safe spaces in my own life and boiled it down to sort of somewhere you can fully express yourself without being judged too harshly or judged too much. And then I thought, well, to be honest, if I broaden the definition a tiny bit, but almost every sort of private space with my friends or sort of my house is a safe space. And I remember when I used to work sales, I used to do sort of door-to-door sales. I could only really sort of do that job for 3 to 4 hours before I'd just be like, that's it, that's enough, I want to go home, I want to go to my safe space. Obviously now I've got a slightly different job, so I'm quite happy to work 12 hours dealing with customers' bullshit. But the point I'm trying to make is we all need some place of comfort, as in person or online. I'm going to read out, or I'm going to analyse some rough criticisms against safe spaces. I didn't need one, therefore I don't see why other people need them. I have dealt with struggle in my life, why can't they? The first rebuttal that comes to mind is, we are not you. For example, did you go to speech therapy? No? Well, I did, and I needed it. We, as individuals, all have our own individual needs. Part of the human condition is overcoming struggle. Some of the greatest works of literature and art have actually come out of times of immense chaos, struggle, and general social disorder. Some of the other criticisms that I'll put them together. So we've got restriction on free speech and don't get called out on their bullshit. Freedom from consequences. One of the fundamental contradictions of a safe space is you're only possibly allowed certain opinions to freely express within that area. So for example, in the snowflakes case, they're not really interested in anti-LGBT conservative viewpoints. In a MGTOW's case, they probably wouldn't be interested in hearing about the positives of feminism and traditional conservatism, as in tradcons. So, within a safe space, you're allowed to freely express yourselves within a certain Overton window of approved viewpoints. Now this could well be the case in terms of speech and ideas and concepts and philosophy. However, as I said, MGTOW men have real life experiences, and sometimes we want to share these experiences within a private or safe space. Or a MGTOW may want to simply speak with other people without the bullshit of detractors. Because the thing with detractors is, are they really trying to understand the other person? Are they really trying to have a debate? Or are they looking for any misspeech for them to strawman you? And by using a safe space, you're simply denying detractors the possibility of this opportunity. And again, I go back to my work example. The second you put the phone down to a customer, you're like, yeah, we'll chat shit about that customer, fucking douchebag. And my work colleagues will be like, oh yeah, I know that customer, he really is a douchebag. Okay, here's a kind of criticism. It's sort of a criticism for. So how does someone's safe space affect you personally? And I struggle to see how someone else's safe space could really affect you. Let's say you was at university and someone has a safe space. You just don't go to it and you ignore it. Job done. Now, a fundamental issue with a safe space is its possible denial of reality and comfort. The reason why everyone criticises the special snowflakes is they haven't really experienced real life yet. So for them to be needing puppies and cuddles when they hear some conservative speaking pales in comparison to the struggles that men have gone through, like for example divorce court, family court, or dealing with suicide. Now, based on my observation, the criticism about safe spaces is if you rely too much on your safe space, if you're a special snowflake. I honestly see no fundamental issue if 80 or 90 or 95% of the time you're in the real world, and then 5% of the time you need some retreat, you need your man cave, you need somewhere to escape. I think the mistake that MGTOW make is in using the language of safe space, because it is sort of feminist LGBT word or term or usage. If you're going to copy their exact words and operate it in a similar fashion, then it's not very surprising that people say that MGTOW is the same as the feminists. I'm not a master linguist, but MGTOW could have made the word more masculine. They could have expanded the word man cave, for example, or used the word male dominion, any space where men can talk about male stuff, free from the consequence or judgment of others, where you can just speak honestly to each other as men. Now, I know you could argue effectively they're the same thing, and you could argue that their function or their purpose is effectively the same. So I could be just splitting hairs, but I think that there should be a distinction. How many words do we have that are similar to each other and synonyms? Online safe spaces. So declaring that something online is a safe space is a little redundant. I'll try and give you examples. So I'm not that familiar with MGTOW.com, but when I did go on there, I noticed it says we ban women. Is that because all these beta men are scared of female opinions and female voices? No, it's because women add very little to any intellectual conversation. And if we're talking about philosophy, they've got so little to add. We might as well forget about them. We won't really lose out. So you could argue by banning women, MGTOW.com has become a safe space for men. So the trouble with safe spaces and YouTube channels is, as I said, sort of making the claim this is a safe space or a MGTOW channel. YouTube is obviously an extremely popular free speech platform, and obviously I can see the point or the merit to stating that and then say, well, look, detractors, I don't really sort of care what you think. But on the other side, as I said, I can see what MGTOW or some MGTOW are attempting to do. They're trying to state that if you're MGTOW, you're free to express your opinions, and on these channels there is some free expression. As I said previously, one of the fundamental flaws of a safe space is you need to sort of know what those sort of prerequisite opinions or views are necessarily, and each content creator subjectively will have their own set of views standards that they will and will not allow necessarily on their channel. I don't think many channels are free speech absolutists like myself, but most people just literally let all comments usually lie because it's just takes up too much time to censor everyone. I'm sure there are examples of MGTOW who ban or block dissenting opinions or dissenting views. That's the same of any group. Now for the main course of the video, why men and MGTOW are not allowed safe spaces. So I'll go back in the first instance of the first definition I used about having safe spaces on university. Quite often men are not allowed safe spaces within universities unless they're part of a minority. And then when the MRA or MRM tried to host real life conferences at universities, they are not allowed either. And if they do go ahead, you'll get people with loud phones shouting outside. There'll be protests against the conferences and all other manner of ridiculous bullshit. So to quickly repeat the question, why are men not allowed safe spaces? Well, firstly, many people believe that men do not have any issues, or that they are not allowed to discuss them publicly. Now you can jump on and say, oh, it's only the feminists shutting down all the MRAs or talking about men's issues. That is true. But when you try to talk even to a normal person about any men's issue, they'll give you the blue pill, gynocentric, deny all the bullshit and all the facts response. And also, in terms of support, there is very little, if any, government support for men and safe spaces, even though, as we know, they make the majority of the homeless, and there's no or barely any domestic violence shelters for men. And as I said, as a wider societal, there's no real support for men. I think this is the right word. I think it's like pathological lack of empathy for men and men's issues and male suffering overall. Another reason why men and MGTOW in particular are not allowed safe spaces is because men are not allowed to show any weakness or vulnerability. By doing so, you have demonstrated you're less of a man, and your other men will lose respect for you, and you're useless for society, because if you're mentally weak and you just can't cope and you need your safe space, you're obviously not a man, you're probably not very productive, you're just generally a weak individual. And the other fundamental is that men are not allowed to feel or be safe. That somehow the feeling of safety or security is somehow feminine. Now yes, I know when you go out with a woman and you're bigger and stronger than her, you probably will protect her, and she might enjoy that protection. However, as I remember someone asked me the question in school, what does the police mean to you? And I answered the question sanity, and no one could really understand what I meant. It's very simple. If there was no police, you would have what you have in Venezuela, where everyone just goes on a killing spree. Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit. There was a lot of people, the police went on strike, there was a lot of people killed. So by the police enforcing a certain level of social order, and for me this level of social order creates some mental well-being. Like, I know when I go home, chances are I have not been robbed. And when I go to sleep at night, I don't have too many fears of someone breaking into my house, beating me up and robbing me for all my material possessions and my Uber PC, which I'd be heartbroken if they ever stole that. So the point I'm trying to illustrate is everyone deserves some level of safety. Again, even for your mental well-being. And we know from sort of children growing up in sort of violent homes or unstable homes, or people who sort of went through foster care. Yes, I know admittedly they needed their sort of parents, but it's also basically the unstable environment that they're in. You need some level of safety and stability to build upon. And obviously throughout history, men are the ones that ensure the sort of safety and stability of everyone. But I see it as a ridiculous double standard so obviously it's a contradiction. That men must be responsible for society's and everyone's safety, but they're not allowed to have any regard to their own safety. And then when they do have a safety issue, let's take the example of a man who was in an abusive domestic violence scenario. Society's like, you're a man, deal with it, bitch. This is just illogical and inhumane. And again, it's a ridiculous double standard. More I want to add, I'll probably do a follow-up video. Thank you for listening, watching, and goodbye. So though